Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today we have some pretty interesting Division Universe stuff to talk about. Today, Ubisoft held their full year investors conference where they talk about the growth and the other things that happened in the last year of their fiscal calendar, as well as taking an outlook at what we can expect in the next year from the company. And in there, we have some updates on the status of the various projects within the Division Universe, as well as a kind of positive reinforcement of the growth that the franchise is seeing, and I think that that points to some great stuff coming down the line. So if you enjoy these deep dives and analyses into the future of the Division franchise, be sure to drop a like on the video and be sure to click that subscribe button as well as turning on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of them coming up in the future. But without further ado, let's get into this. Alright, so I want to start with this excerpt here because the Division 2 and the Division franchise overall is one of the three major game franchises that they highlight in their kind of highlights from the year. So let's take a look at what they said here. The Division 2 saw strong engagement in Q4 with session days up 28%, leading to full year net booking growth of 36% year on year. In April, our teams showcased the future of the franchise during the Division Day. The Division 2 team announced their Year 5 roadmap with the first season set to launch in early June, which will notably include a new game mode, Descent. The Division Heartland team showcased the first gameplay footage, receiving a positive community reception, and announced that there would be a closed beta later this year. Finally, the Division Resurgence, the upcoming mobile game, announced a new testing phase for this summer. Alright, so a lot of positive stuff in there. Speaking on the Division 2 stuff, they talk about a 36% year-on-year growth in terms of net bookings. On the surface, I mean, regardless, that's a positive thing. What I think is kind of funny is that if they're talking about what I think they're talking about, which is this last fiscal year compared to the previous one, which would have been from early mid 2021 to early to mid 2022, there was no content coming out. So I would assume that yes, there would obviously be a growth when there is new content and new things for players to buy. But considering that the Division 2 is really only making their money these days on premium season passes and the occasional outfit that is put into the store, any kind of growth there is positive, and I think that that sets them up really well heading into Year 5 when there's more people playing the game than there has been in several years. Same goes for them talking about session days being up 28% in Q4. Q4 is pretty much only this year, and this year we've had Season 11 release, which is the smallest update we've had since the return of the game thus far, and so again, I think that's a very strong indication that the interest in the Division 2 is there, and that with the commencement of Year 5 and all the things that we know are coming in this year of content, that just sets them up for a really good path. If they can deliver on their promises and deliver a strong content, I think they're going to see really great returns. They reaffirm what we heard during Division Day in that excerpt that the Division 2 Year 5 Season 1 is set to launch early June, and if we go to their title release schedule down here, you will see again that it does say the Division 2 Year 5 Season 1 is coming within the first quarter of the fiscal year, which was from April to June. Again, we don't have an exact date other than them saying early June, which I assume is going to be on or around Ubisoft Forward, which is happening on June 12th. Now let's talk a little bit about the Division Heartland. I think if you are reading coverage about this investors call across the internet today, you might see some negative leaning takes going on around Heartland, and while those things aren't necessarily unwarranted, I do want to share why I am a little bit more optimistic than I think many are right now. So in their presentation right here, it says 2023 to 24 lineup to reflect key strategic pillars, new releases across big brands and long-lasting live games. And it says Assassin's Creed Mirage, The Crew Motorfest, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, The Division Resurgence, Rainbow Six Mobile, X-Defiant Skull and Bones, and another large game. But notably, there is no mention of the imminent release of The Division Heartland. And so I've already seen some people say, well, then that confirms that The Division Heartland isn't coming until at the earliest April of 2024. And while that could be the case, I do not want to, say that it isn't. I'm not so convinced, and let's talk about why. These quotes here are from Yves Guillemot, who is, of course, the CEO of Ubisoft. I think a lot of you know him by this point going over these things. But let's talk about some of his quote here. So starting about midway down in that first paragraph, it says, development of this year's lineup is progressing well with big brands like Assassin's Creed, Avatar, Rainbow Six, and The Division, as well as on long-lasting live service titles like Skull and Bones, The Crew Motorfest, and X-Defiant. More will be shared at our upcoming Forward event. Again, that is happening on June 12th, and I think almost certainly we're going to get updates on The Division Heartland here. Whether they just announced their plans and timeline for the upcoming beta that we know is coming, or if they do give us some sort of insight into when we can expect the release of the game. But we'll talk about that more in a second. Let's look at the second paragraph here. Ubisoft's unique development model relies on robust, iterative design processes which prove successful to enter the open world and live service markets, and that we have been applying to free-to-play. While mastering free-to-play is hard and it is very important to remain prudent, recent developments are encouraging. This indicates that we are on the right path to bringing our brands to significantly larger audiences. The X-Defiant closed beta reached over 1 million players with strong viewership, community feedback, and retention. Similarly, we expect Rainbow Six Mobile and The Division Resurgence to illustrate our progress, and we are happy to see that the gameplay reveal of The Division Heartland has received positive community reception. In line with our commitment, we are making visible, iterative progress on which we can build the next steps toward ultimately delivering a breakthrough in this major market. So I think that paragraph in particular is very key for us Division fans, because it kind of confirms what we have been saying about Heartland and just Ubisoft's general track record with these free-to-play titles all along, which is that they've been taking their time, right? X-Defiant and The Division Heartland were announced back in mid-2021, and here we are almost in mid-2023, and we still don't have confirmed release dates. Now, they do confirm that X-Defiant will be coming out within the next fiscal year, but obviously we still don't have a confirmation on The Division Heartland. But they say here that it's not about just finishing the game and getting it out the door. Rather, they're taking these iterative processes to try and make sure that the game is as solid as it can be and is received as best it can by the fans and the audiences that are going to play it before they push it out the door, because they don't want to shut these games down off the bat, like they did with Hyperscape and canceled Frontline before it even had a chance to be released. They want these games to actually make it. And so my whole point here is, and maybe this is the optimist in me, you're free to say that down below in the comments, but I think that The Division Heartland is making progress. I mean, they've said as much, and we see that happening through the various closed tests that they've announced and now the closed beta coming this summer. I think that whether it is a marketing decision or whether, whatever the case may be, it will release before April 2024, which again, I just don't think they would hold it until then. And I think there is a good reason for why they're not necessarily committing to that day thus far. What that reason is, I don't know. We're probably never going to find out. But my point is that I think even though they are not publicly committing to releasing The Division Heartland within the next year in this investors meeting today, I think whether it's at Ubisoft Forward or sometime later in the coming months, we are going to indeed find out what their plan is for releasing The Division Heartland, because as of, last September at Ubisoft Forward, they said that their plan was to release the game in late 2022 or early 2023. So, quality and finality of the game is not a problem. The game is done for all intents and purposes, but they are waiting, whether it is to collect more feedback and implement that into the game, whether it's to change up some different systems, whatever the case is, and I think we're going to see the fruits of that labor in the coming months. So again, call me an optimist if you like, but that's my outlook on it. And then the last thing I did want to point out, even though we already covered it, is that for you Division Resurgence fans, they do commit to a 2023 to 24 release for the game here. That means anytime between, well, it started back in April, but up until March of 2024, you can expect the release of the Division Resurgence. We know we're getting another test phase in the coming months here, probably by the end of June, early July is my guess. And my completely baseless prediction is that it will come out sometime around October or November of this year. That just feels right to me. That gives them some more time to implement some more feedback after the beta, and I think that we will see that global launch happen then. But my friends, that is all that we have for today, going over Ubisoft's latest investors meeting. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about. What do you think about the Division 2's positive growth that's happened recently? Do you think that sets them up for a successful year 5? What do you think about the comments and lack of comments on the Division Heartland? How do you see that playing out over the coming weeks and months? And when do you think the Division Resurgence will indeed release? Whatever you're thinking, let me know down below, and as always, I will be very curious to read through it. My biggest takeaway here is that Ubisoft Forward is the place to be. That is coming in less than a month. It is on June 12th, and I think probably not the Division 2, because we're already going to be into year 5 at that point, and they're going to be, focusing on getting that launch down. But specifically for the Division Heartland and the Division Resurgence, I think we are going to hear a lot about those games there, and so I'm very excited for that, and I will be streaming it here on the channel, so set your calendar and come back then. In the meantime, if you want to connect more with me, you can find my Twitter and Discord links in the description down below. But that's all I've got for today, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.